there is something big that you are missing about the Habs goalie situation, and we think it'll be a bit shocking how it looks just a couple months down the road. We'll be getting into that, but first, Sean Farrell has an amazing quote about Coach Martin St. Louis, and Paul Byron is sticking around the team in his retirement, so a lot of fun stuff to cover on this edition of Habs Digest. And as we get into this cool Paul Byron news, just a quick reminder to hit subscribe if you're one of the 75% recently of people who are not subscribed and you're watching this video. Hit the button. We'd really appreciate it. But Jesse, Paul Byron, today in Brossard, a bunch of the players, including Kirby, Dach, Nick, Suzuki, Cole, Caufield, Jake Allen, were in the practice facility in Brossard, and look who was there. It was Paul Byron on the ice with the players skating, and you gotta wonder, right, with all these rumors about Kent Hughes saying that Paul Byron might come back to coach, do you think this is the start of Paul Byron's coaching career for Montreal, or do you think he was maybe just out having a skate with the boys?
I think this is the start for Coach Paul, or can we even really call it the start? Because we've seen him kind of in the locker room addressing some of the younger guys at the prospect camp and everything else. You got to feel like Paul Byron just loves being on the ice. Like, he loves doing this. Of course, he can't continue his NHL career, but to still be on the ice, still be around his teammates, still contributing very much, has a lot of knowledge about the game. All the same is great. It's really nice to see. You definitely feel like he's going to be a part of our organization going forward, our increased, player development, and putting that to good use, right? Because what's so great is he's there coaching, and we're having players, a lot of our top guns out there, such as Kirby Dach, and we're hearing reports that his shot's looking amazing, that he's kind of putting into practice some of the techniques that we've reported that apparently he's been working on this summer, looking great like that. So, I mean, great to see him on the ice, and great to see the buys back on the ice as well.
The buys. Oh, Jesse using some newfie slang there. I love it. But yeah, no, we saw some awesome guys on the ice. Actually, on that Kirby Dach note, Tim Turk made a great tweet today again about Kirby Dach and how impressed he's been with Kirby's work. And I'm feeling a 25+ goal season from Kirby this year if all things go right. But a lot of people, Jesse, were speculating about line combinations, seeing some guys out there. And just before we move on to the next topic, I want to get your opinion on this because I think it's not that crazy. What do you think about a Newhook Suzuki Caufield line, right? Newhook is a left-handed shot. I feel like he could fit in seamlessly. I know Caufield plays the left wing, but Newhook on the right wing might not be that crazy, adds a bit of speed. Yes, it's small, but I think some people are thinking, could that be like a super high skill line going forward if Dach solidifies himself as the number 2 center?
Well, we've seen in the past in a smaller sample size of RHP being very good. Raphael Harvey-Pinard, another kind of spark plug kind of guy. So even though he's not the biggest, because he has that motor, you can still be effective in those type of situations, win those puck battles, get it to your playmaker and Suzuki and everything else. That being said, I'm 100% open to it. I think you have to try it. You have no choice. There's great potential of it working out great. In my thoughts, kind of leading up to training camp, I would definitely lean first towards somebody with a little bit more size on that first line, just to kind of balance out with Suzuki and Caufield. That's why I think that, obviously Dach has been so effective on that line. Obviously, Anderson's a bigger guy too, but maybe just his style of play doesn't work the best with those two. But obviously, even I've mentioned Joshua Watt in the past, it's a big leap, but when he can maybe make that NHL leap, that might be a good spot for him. Again, just because of the size that he can have on that first line. I would like to see that. Of course, we shouldn't rule out what Slafkovsky can do. I think it'll be a steady climb for him up the year through the ranks. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that later on. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, but definitely I think maybe just, again, a little bit of size just to balance out that first line might be a good look.
Well, regardless, the guys are back on the ice, and oh man, it just makes you so excited for the season, right? Training camp is not very far away. Cannot wait. Let's move on to topic number 2 today. We're talking about some Habs prospects, right? That'll be there for training camp. And Sean Farrell will be there, right? Of course, he'll probably be playing in Laval to start the year, but he had a great comment on Coach Marty, right? Sean Farrell, he actually just finished his economics degree at Harvard. It was originally a 4-year program. He finished it in 3, and now he's going to be playing professional hockey. He is a brilliant dude, but he also had this great quote about one of his idols, Martin St. Louis. Quote, "I remember a morning practice before a game against the Maple Leafs where I was not playing. I was doing overtime, and Martin just came out of the blue and started trying to take the puck away from me. He then did some exercises with me, and then we talked. He helped me a lot. He's one of my childhood idols, and learning from him is extremely special." And Jesse, I know you said before the show, like, just imagine you're one of your childhood idols. Like, well, imagine you're just playing on a pond or something when your idols comes up and takes the puck and says, "Let's do some drills." And I know Farrell's with the Habs organization, and he's no stranger to Coach Marty, but you got to think it's one of the, it's a similar feeling. So, but again, this just reinforces all the positive things we've been hearing about Coach Marty. And it's just every single time we hear a quote like this, I feel like we have to talk about it.
It's true. And it just goes to show how Martin St. Louis, how he's able to read players and just kind of creating that positive environment, kind of knowing what they need, having some fun. You know that Marty loves being on the ice, kind of playing keep away and everything else. So you can kind of picture this, what he's kind of saying, right? But kind of knowing when he needs a little tap on the back and everything else, you know? And I think that that's really important, again, for younger players, putting a big, impetus on development. So again, Marty St. Louis just being that perfect coach that this team's right now to kind of pick up a player when he's not playing that night, right? And kind of get him into proper spirits. And again, you just have to think, just looking back on Marty St. Louis, why he's so respected, why he's so loved by his players around the league, like going from an undrafted, smaller guy to Stanley Cup champion to beloved NHL coach, right? Like, just what an amazing career for Martin St. Louis. You got to feel like his coaching career is just beginning. Who knows what that'll hold as well. Just seems to have all the right tools, right? And in so many different ways. Just really a player's coach, So, of course, so amazing to hear this.
Yeah, maybe he sees a bit of himself in some of these smaller guys too, right? And it's awesome. Maybe he'll be able to add some hardware along with his awards and his Stanley Cup. Maybe he can add Jack Adams to that in the future. That would be pretty nice. But let's move on to the goalie situation, Jesse. And this is the thing that I think a lot of people maybe aren't realizing, right? You guys are missing, there's something about the DeSmith and Monty situation, and that is the fact that they are both in contract years. And what does that mean? Well, it means both of their contracts are expiring after this upcoming season. Now, I feel like the impact for this for both of them is a little bit different, right? So here's the thing with Casey DeSmith. That's Sam Montembeault. Casey DeSmith is a 32-year-old goalie. I mean, career .912 save percentage, which is pretty good, and a 3.17 GAA last year, 2.79, 2.54. Like, he's been a solid goalie his whole career. However, at this point, he's kind of the de facto third-string goalie for Montreal, and he's a small goalie at only 6 feet tall. For him, you might think this is his last year. In his head, it's like, boy, I'm not going to get another big contract if I don't perform at a high level this year. And Jesse, statistics show that players in their contract year perform better than the 2 and 3 years after, almost always. So you got to think that he's going to be going for it. But the same for Samuel Montembeault. If he has another year where the Habs are like, wow, this guy is great. He turns 27 in just over a month. Maybe the Habs are like, well, let's ink him to a deal as well. But if he's playing super, super well in this contract year, could that mean the Habs got to pay him a bit more than he might want? This is kind of a crazy situation that I feel like not many people are really talking about.
It's true, and it's going to bring out the best in these two goalies, and kind of at a perfect time for us, really, because I think we're really deciding kind of who's going to be part of that core going forward. Mm-hmm. And as you kind of study, you look at the numbers, you have to feel that Casey DeSmith would definitely be an improvement over Jake Allen. Mm-hmm. And there's a very strong argument to be made that Casey DeSmith would even be an improvement over Samuel Montembeault. Wow. I really feel like Casey DeSmith, if he ends up playing this year with the Habs, which I feel every day that passes on, there's a stronger likelihood, I think that he's going to end up being the number one by the end of the year. And as we see, if we just kind of look from last year at the numbers, right, playing 38 games for DeSmith, so that's only 2 games less than Monty. He had a better save percentage, 905 save percentage compared to Monty's 901, and then also a better GAA at 317 GAA compared to Monty's 342. Again, only playing 2 games left, right? You got to feel like Jake Allen is the odd man out, even though it might be a little bit harder to make that move with the term, with the amount, per year and everything else. You got to feel like Casey DeSmith would be a great combination with Samuel Montembeault. And I really see Casey DeSmith, if he has that opportunity, he could even pass Samuel Montembeault, which kind of leads to Kent Hughes deciding maybe mid-part through the season, which one of these players do we want to extend to have as our 1B? Because I don't think that Casey DeSmith or Samuel Montembeault is a 1A if you were really trying to get into our championship window, at least not right now. We don't want to rule out what Samuel Montembeault is capable of, but definitely not a solid 1A on a very competitive team for right now. So you got to feel like there's a really good chance that Allen is the guy that really is moved here. And I'm really curious to see what Casey DeSmith does with his opportunity if he does get that in Montreal.
That's a good point. And another thing, too, that I guess I didn't even really think about is that if Casey DeSmith is like, man, this is my contract year and I'm with the Habs, I got to prove myself. If he starts playing really well, that in turn forces Monty to play better, too. Because he's like, I'm also in a contract year. It'll be, if Allen is moved out, it's 2 guys battling for their next contracts and their future, really. And if you're Montreal, you also got to think that Sam Montembeault is the guy you're going to want to extend, the Quebec native, and he's only going to be 27, while DeSmith is 32 going on 33. So, you know, if you want one guy to be your 1B of the future, Monty has been with the team. He's been through some tough years, and he's improved and improved through the Habs staff. He's the guy you want to extend. But if Casey DeSmith is going off at some point this year, you got to think maybe Kent Hughes looks to trade him at the deadline if he proves himself enough. So there's a lot of moving parts in the situation, Jesse. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you had to make a choice, let's say they're both playing really, really well. Are you on board with me saying that you'd probably extend Monty? But, I mean, this situation is just, it's really, really interesting.
It's a fluid situation. They're basically neck and neck, if we're just looking at it kind of last year statistically. Of course, Montreal, didn't have the best year last year, but at the same time, I think that, you need to keep an open mind to this. Like, we still don't have our solid 1A. So until we do that, all bets are off. I think that there could be a world where Casey DeSmith ends up stealing that 1B role, right? Like, I think Montembeault obviously has the inside track. He became our starter last year. He earned that role by the end of the year. So he definitely has all that momentum. He's shown a lot of improvement on his game. But I mean, we definitely can't rule out what Casey DeSmith is. I think a very good chance if he's our 1A, right? But if he's just outplaying Samuel Montembeault, I mean, he's the guy that you got to extend and then kind of pivot to eventually find that 1A as well.
Man, it's crazy to even think about, considering Kent Hughes was ready to just ship him off the day he got him. But looking at the stats, looking at the situation, the fact he's in a contract year, I mean, he wants to prove himself, and whether that's in Montreal or somewhere else, we'll definitely have to keep an eye on DeSmith. So let us know in the comments what you think of this. I mean, do you think there's a possibility DeSmith could become the #1 goalie? Because it might not be as far-fetched as you think. But that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 10,000 subs. We really appreciate your support. I'm Josh Gosse, for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.